All right, well, hello everyone. It's a little after 4 o'clock, and I am ready to go ahead and get started with today's tutorial. If you have any questions, please use the chat box while we are live. Obviously, if this is an event which is um, being viewed on the YouTube channel, it will not be live, and there is no chat box. But let's go ahead and get started on this because I know there are some people who were not able to attend today, and that's completely fine. This is a tutorial on workflows in Pixifi, and this is part 2 of what is so far a 2-part series. There will be more because we're going to go all the way through implementation and the activity created from workflows, that sort of thing, where they can be used in even different scenarios. But what we're talking about today is some of the actions and their effects. Let's get into what that means for you. Actions can be either processes that can be called or invoked during the scheduling of automatic items, or they can be processes that occur at the end of a phase after all the tasks have been completed. So there's 2 places where this can occur. The first is during the automatic items while you are creating or that you have created in a workflow. And the other is after the end of all tasks in a phase. We'll go over those one by one, of course, so that you can see them. But this just gives you an opportunity to actually see what those actions will be once we get to that point. The automatic items operate differently at the phase level and the automatic items level. So let's take a little look at those real quick, just to remind you. The automatic item action items are operated by time and or date, just like all the other automatic items. So it's either going to take place at a specific time on a day based upon your criteria, or it's going to be X number of days after a certain thing that has occurred within the workflow. So those are all pre-scheduled items. Each type of action requires different input to operate properly, obviously. So if you are creating, for example, a project from your actions, it is going to have different properties than if you are creating a gift card, for example, through your workflows. And obviously we'll look at those in just a moment. So loading that info in advance means you don't have to remember to do it later. So if you know every time that you are going to create a project, for example, from an event or a workflow, go ahead and loading that into your workflow template now ensures that it's going to be there later. And you can apply it to the workflow and forget about it. You don't have to keep remembering these things. How the phase actions operate. So the phase actions are executed immediately after the phase tasks are complete. Okay, so the phase tasks are the ones that you assigned in the first example that we did. And once a phase's tasks are complete, you can have it do specific actions. And they're all kind of the same actions as you can get in the automatic items, but their execution occurs at a specific time. The only one that has a delay in the preset number of days is the email action. So if you have an email action that depends on the completion of a phase's tasks, you can set that action so that after a certain number of days, this email action will occur. All post-phase actions are executed right away and with the parameters you've set up. So all you need to do is save it, apply the workflow, and forget about it, okay? So how do you work this out, right? Well, plan it. Just like we talked about in the first tutorial, you really should plan these things out. And this can be just part of your overall workflow planning. You can create, for example, a plan that includes these particular activities, these actions, which are going to occur either before the event or during its progress. Okay, so look at each option to determine its effectiveness for your workflow. Implement those one item at a time, considering all of the factors needed for that particular process and action. These are important elements in creating your plan. And think outside of what you're used to doing, because this can be kind of a true virtual assistant. You know, you tell someone, let's say after a sales appointment, let's say, for instance, that a frame was ordered. You can have an action in your workflow that will create a project that does all of the work to order a frame. We'll get more into that once we get a little deeper into some of the thinking outside the box stuff goes. Put your plan together. We're going to see this in real life. My plan is we're going to add a project to occur the day of the shoot, which details the requirements for editing for my newly hired editor. We're going to add a text message reminder to myself to back up the cards on my computer. And we're going to add an email to staff about creating the slideshow. Okay, so let's get over to Pixifi and see how that works. Okay, so we're gonna bring up Pixifi here. Here's mine. And we're going to start with the same workflow that we used in the first part of this series. So we can build on something that's already familiar. And that was our senior smoke makeup session workflow. You remember you have all of these wonderful aspects. You have several reminders in here and some updates, some questionnaires, some text messages that go on. And down here, of course, we have all of our tasks. We created something called Super Prep, which is not something that's actually necessary, but it's in here. We're just going to leave it there. We're going to kind of roll with it. And what I typically will do for anything in which I know that there is going to be additional things that need to be done is I will definitely plan it out. I can write it out on paper. I can use one of the many apps that are available that can create the workflow for me, the flow chart, whatever I need. But one of the things that I typically do when I am working on my system, my workflows, is I'm going to add things that are just a little beyond the typical send things out to the client. Obviously, with this, we're sending out a booking notice to the client and a reminder via text message. But as I pointed out in my earlier broadcast tutorial, is that there's also a booking notice that goes out to the makeup artist that is on my staff list. So everybody kind of gets a little bit involved here with these setups. But I want to go through each of these other elements with you. We went over emails, SMS, text messages, and questionnaires. Now let's go into a couple of other areas, okay, with this. One of the things that I like to point to is some of the newer features in Pixifi, and one of them is statuses. Okay, so one of the things you can do within this workflow that you're just remember, a workflow can be called from a number of places now. It can be called as part of the event itself. It can be assigned during the creation of the event, either by a booking page or manually. And it can also be assigned, of course, by a proposal. But you can also have a workflow assign a status, which can assign a new workflow. We'll get into that more of that later. But you can switch the status. I don't have any statuses that I use on my events, so this would be blank, of course. But you can determine when it gets scheduled, when to switch the status. Does it happen after 5 days, 10 days, a month, whatever it is? And you can select when the workflow or when the event occurs, before the event date, after the booking date, after the workflow is applied, and of course the time of day. All right, so one of the other things that you can do is you can add a project. All right, so one of the things that I do with my seniors is I create a sub-project for editing, okay? Every year about this time, probably not this year, I hire an intern. And it's that intern's job to do the culling of all of the photos, okay? So I'll take a little drink here. It gets some exposure to the software, it gets some exposure to some of the imagery. So what I will do is, this is the culling, senior images project. And we're gonna click on the insert variables and tokens button here. And we're gonna add the individual's name, a space, and then we're going to add their event date, which is down here. Whoops. Maybe not. That's right. This is an event, so it doesn't know what that is. Or this is a project. There is no event date in the project. Okay. So just the first and last thing. We don't have really any duplicates in our seniors. We only do about 4 or 5 a month. So and now for type, remember that we are creating a project. Under type, we want to use something that is either already set up, or of course, since you see the green plus, you can add a new project type on the fly. But this is our project called Edit Senior Portraits. Okay, and the status is going to be active. And the workflow that I want to apply is Senior Portrait Session Editing. Okay, and when this is going to occur is 1 day after event date. All right, so this is going to create a new project at 1 day after the event. Right, so that means that all of the pictures are going to be available and set up in our system, because we did that back on our original preparation, our tasks. So the images will be saved onto our computer, and then the computer images, or the images on the computer, will be archived. And so there are specific instructions in this workflow, this project workflow, which tell whomever is doing the work where to find the pictures and what to do to them. Okay, so we're going to save that. I wanted to show you that it has a different icon color. So if you are creating a project action in your automatic items, it's going to show up with this icon, just so you know what that looks like. All right, so let's go and look at some of the actions that you can add to your workflow. Okay, so another one is add contract. Add contract is probably one of the most complex ones, because contracts have kind of a let's say they have a lot more information going for them. Okay, so the contract template, I'm not going to create one because I don't typically add contracts after the fact. But if you have a new contract that you want to add as a result of something, let's think outside the box here. We'll just call it Senior Upgrade. Okay, and we're going to say their senior upgrade was going to be associated with their name. There it is, first and last. Okay, so that's what that looks like. You can just go ahead and put that in there. Which contacts should be added? Probably number 1, because that's the contact that set up the portrait session to begin with. And we want to send it by email from the brand. The email to send will be senior contract, senior portraits and contract. And we're going to send this 1 day before the event. Okay, we're going to send that at 8 o'clock. All right, so when you save this, what will happen is on the day before the event, it is going to create a contract from this template, the Senior Portrait Contract template. It's going to give it this name. It's going to send it to this person by email from the brand, and using this email, which is the basic send portrait contract for senior portraits. Okay, so once we save that, it'll be saved in there. I'm gonna go ahead and save it in here so you can see its icon, but it's got this pretty green, so you recognize that it's sending a contract. It's got the pen on the paper, and that's what that looks like. All right, so we're gonna go ahead and remove that because I don't want it being stuck in here. You can also add a gift card. I'm not sure when this was requested or how it was put in there, but I think it's a pretty good idea. Now, I'll just remind you again that gift card actions are only available to those with a pro subscription. And you can really kind of do anything you want here. You can call this thanks for booking, or thanks for the session. And let's say we're giving them $50 and we're going to send it by email from the brand. And we're going to send them the gift card when to create and send 1 day after the event date. And this might be an incentive or something, you know, if you're going to spend a few extra, you get them to spend a few extra bucks on your on their session, or on their portraits, you know, something like that. Some people will do a higher amount and it'll be half the amount of the session fee or something like that. So there's a lot of ways that you can use this. I think it's a good marketing tool to have something like this, to create a gift card to send out as part of maybe an unexpected, something unexpected for them. They're not looking at it saying, hey, you know, I know that I get this free gift card. Not necessarily, but it's good to have this as a marketing feature. And I'll just go ahead and save this so you can see what it looks like. It's got this purple haze around it. And of course, it looks like a little credit card, which is cute. So I am sure. All right. So finally, I shouldn't say finally because there's also an in-view event. You can add a Zapier event. Okay. So there's a lot of gray area here simply because I did not pre-create a trigger for this. Now, if any of you have set up Zapier and set up any of your Zapier triggers, you know that it does require that you have a trigger pre-set up. So if you have the trigger ready to go and you've set up your data fields accordingly, you can just specify in here that this happens, let's say 4 days before the event, whatever it might be. Some people use they use services like send cards. One of the things that we do or have done in the past is we've sent out thank you cards to brides and grooms via send cards, which I think is a great service. And one of the reasons why I think things like this are good to have is that you can create that marketing happiness, if you will, that kind of says, well, we value you as a client, and thank you very much. And you don't have to remember to do it. Now, I know that might sound a little bit impersonal to some people. It doesn't to me, because the personalization is one of those things where you say, well, it's an effort that you made early on to take care of your clients beforehand. So these are all just great ways to create that kind of thing. One of the things this reminds you of is this is the name of the trigger that you will use, and it's set up inside of Zapier. Okay, so it's just going to take this trigger name, use this data 4 days before the event, and trigger whatever it is going to send out. Whether that's a thank you card or whether it's something that you use an external service for. I know a number of people who use services like Acuity and Asana to manage their events offline or online, but out of Pixifi. So that's just another way to do that. And finally, in our automatic items is add an in-view event. Of course, you have to be subscribed to in-view, and you have to set it up in order for it to know where to send this stuff. There's an easy interface that you can get to. I'll just show you where it is here. External integrations. Just open another tab real quick, and you go over to your third-party image hosting. There's your in-view. You want to sign up before you get started, and then you want to authorize it. And then once you've authorized it, it's done. Okay, you don't have to reauthorize it again. You just set it up and let it roll. Okay, so once you get that set up, then what you're going to do is create a name for your event in here. In this case, the event name is that. And then let's say something that I've taken to using for a lot of stuff is the phone number of the person whose event it is. Okay, because phone numbers are unique. Everybody has an individual one. It's kind of like your social security number. Everybody has a unique one. But once you get that kind of thing set up, you can add stuff into the name of it. This is going over to InView with this name. And then once you set it up with let's do 10 days after the event date, and you save that. It's not, Pixifi in here is not going to pre-check to see if you have an InView set up. Okay, it's only going to do that on the fly. But I wanted you to see what that looks like. And it's the pink, which is InView's color, and the little InView symbol down there. And now you kind of know what that looks like. All right. All right, so those are some of the things that you can set up in here. One other thing that I am going to do is another action is I am going to add a text message. And this is going to be, it is going to be setups pro select, and this is going to be 4 days after the event date. I'm going to say who is going to be, the staff role is going to be the salesperson. All right, so what this does is it sets up a text message that says in 4 days after the event, after 8 a.m., we're going to send it to the salesperson and remind them to set up the Pro Select account for this. Okay. If you've never used Pro Select, you know that they have a number of really cool features. And one of them is something that does, that gives an opportunity to your client to send a picture of the room that they're going to think about having portraits in. So what this does is it reminds my salesperson, which is me at this time, to set up something in Pro Select so that it will send them an invitation to send pictures of their house or inside specific rooms. And that's all that's for. I'm going to go ahead and cancel this for now. But let's talk about the actions as they apply to the specific phases. Okay, so you can do the same things essentially in the phases. It does require, if you're going to add actions, it does require that you have at least one task. Okay, and the reason why there has to be a task is something has to be completed within the phase. A task has to be completed within the phase in order for the trigger to go off. And the trigger is whichever actions you have set up. Okay, let's say that after preparation, you want to set an action. Oh, that's right, I don't have statuses. Well, you know what? Let's go over and create some statuses. I will just event statuses. And this is a real quick setup. We'll just go ahead and say, well, I don't like any of those, to be honest with you. We're going to add a new status. No, we're not, because that's too much information. We're just going to go with those for now. Okay, so after preparation, we're going to let it change the event status to new event booked. All right, so this will happen after these two tasks are marked complete. Okay, there is a way to get around some of the things that you see when you are in the midst of an event, and we'll go over this when we apply a workflow to an event. If you are mid-event and you don't want this to go off, you can delete it before you mark off any of these tasks as completed. You can also answer the question that comes up that says yes or no. Do you want to perform the actions that are part of this phase? And if you say no, obviously it's not going to fire these off. Okay. You can do just like you could do above. You can create a project. You can create a new contract. You can add a gift card. You can add a Zap, and you can add an in-view event. Okay, and all of those were described above, so I'm not going to go over those again. But in addition to the actions that we had above, remember that you can also at this time create an email or a text message or a questionnaire. So if you want to, we created an email up here above the day after the session, which is the day after email, basically. Which says that everything went fine, all the pictures look great, et cetera, et cetera. If you don't want that to occur here, if you would rather wait and make sure that all the pictures look good, you can add that email down here. And you can say, coming from the brand, you want this to be the senior feel good message. And the email template that we're going to use is senior, what did I say? It was day after, right? There it is, senior day after, okay? And obviously the client is going to be notified on this, and we want it to send out 1 day after it's accepted in this case, okay? And the 1 day delay is only available on emails. Everything else is created immediately, okay? So we're going to save that. And this email is going to be generated to the client using the template senior day after session right after we click complete on this, okay? So that works out pretty well. And of course, there's just lots of other things you can add. You can even add text messages. Text messages can go out to specific staff members. The one that I created above to remind my person to send information to the client about that send your rooms thing. You can just create that here if you want. Tell sales to create ProSelect album. And you can do that right here. Staff set up with ProSelect, and this goes out to staff member. That is the salesperson. So save that. Right. So that pretty much gives you a good idea of the variety of things that you can do, both as automatic items up here in this section, and as part and parcel of the individual phases. So remember that actions and phases only take place after the tasks have all been completed in a phase, and not necessarily in any specific order. If you have 10 tasks in a phase, it will wait till all 10 are completed, even if the last one in the list is completed before the first one, or the first few, or whatever. It will wait till all 10 of those tasks are completed before it starts going in on this action. So there's a bunch of information here. I'm going to go to your Q&A now to see what kind of questions I have to ask. Since Graham is online, I know that I have a question or two from him. But Marcus says, do projects show up in the client portal? Let's go take a look at our brand settings for seniors, because you can control this by brand. If you go to your brand settings, you click on client portal, you can look down at the available widgets. One of them is projects. So if you have your projects, you can have it show up in your client portal. If you don't want the projects for a client to show up in their portal, drag it over to hidden widgets and it's not there anymore. Something else that you can do with projects, which I think is really kind of helpful, and we're just going to open one here. This one, for example, you can, for the most part, Let's see, notes, brand, update project. Well, this is kind of the wrong project. This is an older project, so it wouldn't show up in here. What you can do is on project statuses for this type of like edit. See, well, I think I basically answered the question or the reason why you wanted to change that, and that was to make sure that the client portal, you can just turn off those projects. They don't need to see those things. I don't. The only clients that I have under any brand that I want to see project and project status is if it is somebody that we're doing restoration for. Okay, just so they can keep up with where we are in their restoration, what time frame, that sort of thing. But I think this is a great way to get rid of the problem. Right, on to Graham, who says, can Zapier events be set up in workflow to execute an hour or 15 minutes before an event? Well, you know what, Graham, let's go look. Let's see here. So it would have to occur here, obviously, because this is the only place where you can control timing. So let's add a zap. And when to trigger, we're going to say 1 day. See, I got days, weeks, and months. So I don't really have an hour prior. What you could do is send a message over to Tim and say, it would be great if we also were able to trigger our zaps an hour or a certain number of minutes before an event and add that in to the automatic items list or other places. I'm sure there are, but workflows is the only place I know of where you can do this kind of thing. So that might be something that you want to try to do. But at this point, no, days are the only thing available, and there's no such thing as 0.25 days that I know of. I'm pretty sure that it would just get lost in there somewhere. So that's everything for today. Let's see what else we got here. Everybody, okay, that was to everyone. Could be integrating with my digital signage. You know, that's really not a bad idea. I keep thinking a lot of people like to get down to the hours and minutes. It is something that is available in booking pages. For example, you can get down into things that occur just minutes before, like how far out people can book, up to an hour before the event, that kind of thing. So yeah, I can see where it would be valuable in a number of other places. So if you have any other questions, feel free to contact me offline. I'm happy to contact or be in contact with you. Here is my information so that you know how to contact me in the future. If you want to get online tutorial notifications by text message and or email, go to this link and you can sign right up. You'll receive the first updates on live events upcoming, learning about new tutorials that are posted on my channel, and of course, special offers and updates on free one-on-one support, okay? Not all live events will be put onto the channel, and not all channel items will be live events. So there may be some quick feature updates. There may be some out-of-the-box solutions for you, just something I was thinking about and say, hey, I want to make a short tutorial about that. And I'll put those in my channel as well. So it's going to be the Pixifi learning channel for the most part, which I think is what it's called. But it's more than just these live events. I have now worked out what I think are all of the bugs that I had before. So things will be happening a little bit faster, and I'll make a lot more of these because it's a whole lot easier now. New ideas and things you just need. And of course, I always welcome ideas for new video tutorials, especially with Pixifi. And there's a lot more stuff coming. And I think I have a good start into this, thankfully. And I hope you guys are enjoying it too. For now, we shall say ta and cheers to all. Bye-bye.